Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. In our first story, we'll tell how finding ways to get cheap junk food really brings a sense of togetherness for college people. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Shop colluded with vending machine to charge expensive prices. In our campus, there's a tuck shop which sells snacks for higher than usual prices. The owner has a contract with the institution, so they don't have any competition. Everyone knows they're expensive, including the higher-up people. The higher-ups are not the ones with caffeine and sugar cravings. After some lobbying, the institution tried to introduce competition by installing vending machines from another company in another part of the campus. But that building required an access key to enter, meaning visitors couldn't use it, but most people had access, so it wasn't a problem. The problem came when the vending machine owner decided to charge the exact same prices as the tuck shop. Here's the revenge part. A cohort lived near the vending machines and was able to monitor the arrival time of the refill guy. Whenever he left, we would put up a sign on the machine saying, "Machine, eat your coins," and remove the sign before he arrived each time. As a result, the company's sales were low. After a while, we arranged someone to walk by when they were checking the machine and told him that the tuck shop owner made an emotional plea that the vending machine was stealing her business and that she needed our support to survive. That's why no one would buy from the vending machine, especially when it charges the exact same prices. Not long after the vending machine prices dropped below the tuck shop prices, now it was time to do the reverse. We first made the vending machine more accessible to everyone by pushing it closer to the main entrance and put a bunch of rubbish bins in its old place so that the vendor couldn't move it back, and wedged open the door so that it was accessible by everyone and anyone who forgot to bring their access card. Now, there's no way of knowing whether this would hurt the tuck shop sales, but we were hoping it would, and only time will tell if the tuck shop drops their prices. And our next story. Dad has a long memory. My dad told me this story several years ago. The numbers aren't exact, but the general idea is there. Dad owned and ran an auto body repair shop for over 30 years until he retired about 5 years ago and sold the business. He was the face of the business, the person the customers dealt with. In case you've never had the pleasure of taking your car to a body shop, the way it generally worked was this. You wreck your car, come into the shop for an estimate, the insurance company sends the body shop a check for the repairs minus your deductible, and you pay the shop the rest when you pick up your car. There were expectations. Sometimes, for various reasons, the insurance company would pay the deductible as well. Like I said, this was a small town, and not a very rich one. There were quite a lot of people for whom the few $100s for the deductible was a lot of money. Having to pay it all at once might mean choosing between not paying rent or not buying food that month. Dad could sympathize. He grew up dirt poor, and I mean that literally. The house he grew up in had dirt floors until he was in his teens. He once told me that at night when he went to bed in the winter, he would sometimes have to brush snow off of his bed where it came through a gap between the wall and the roof of the house. So he understood that kind of poverty, and he understood that for many people, going without their car wasn't an option. The public transportation where we lived wasn't a viable way to get to and from work on time. Dad wouldn't want someone to be without their car. Yet he also wanted to be paid for the work he did. So if they couldn't afford to pay the deductible right away, he would let them pay in installments, whatever they could afford. $50 a month, $20 a month. Dad wouldn't even charge them interest. One day, one of the local pastors brought in a friend to get his car fixed. It being a small town and Dad being active in the community, he of course knew the pastor well. Let's call the pastor's friend's name Gerald. Now, as it happens, Gerald turned out to be a real con artist, but Dad didn't know that at the time. The estimate was written, submitted to the insurance company, and a check was received. When Gerald came in to pick up his car, he said the insurance company would be sending a separate check to cover the $500 deductible. This was a small town, so people generally trusted one another, and he'd come in with the pastor, so Dad took him at his word. He handed over the keys to Gerald's car, and Gerald left. A few days went by. No check from the insurance company came. Dad called Gerald, who assured him the insurance company told him the check was on its way. A few more days went by, another call, another excuse. A few more days go by. Finally, Dad gives up and calls the insurance company directly. The insurance company, when asked about the check for the deductible, replied, "Nope, he's responsible for that himself. We're not sending a check for it." Dad calls Gerald, tells him to pay up. Gerald says he'll come down with the money. Days go by, no Gerald. Dad calls. Gerald has stopped answering his phone. After a few more days of this, Dad goes and files a claim in small claims court against Gerald for the deductible. At the hearing, the court says Gerald has to pay the deductible plus some fees. Unfortunately, says Gerald, he doesn't have any money with which to pay, nor does he have any assets Dad can seize. The car wasn't even in his name, so Dad couldn't even take that. Dad seethed. He fumed. But not being one for criminal retaliation, there was nothing else he could do. He realized that Gerald, being the scumbag that he was, had set out to swindle him from the start. Worse, he had succeeded. And so, having won the moral victory and nothing else, Dad moved on. Years passed. As I said, Dad was active in the local community. He knew many of the people in the town from fixing their cars or being in any of the many civic organizations he was active in, or just from having lived in the town for 40 years or so. When he would drive down the street in the town, he would look at the driver of any oncoming car and wave to that person if he knew them, which he usually did. One day, who should he see coming towards him in a newish Dodge Grand Cherokee? That's right, Gerald. Gerald, who likely didn't look at the driver of any oncoming traffic, didn't notice Dad pass him. He probably didn't notice Dad do an illegal U-turn on a U.S. highway that ran through town, nor did he likely notice Dad catch up to him so that he could get the license plate number of his car. Dad, armed with the small claims judgment and friendships with every law enforcement officer in the county, had the license plate number run to see who the car was registered to. Can you guess who the owner of the car was? That's right, Gerald. By this time, Dad had started a side business towing cars with his brother. So when he went to the court to ask to repossess the car, he asked the court if he could be allowed to go and get it personally, which he was. He also asked for interest on the original amount owed. Dad knew that the maximum amount of interest you could charge on a car in Michigan was 24%. Dad, not being greedy, only asked for 20%, compounded monthly, plus court costs, plus an impound fee, plus a daily storage fee. All told, Gerald now owed Dad somewhere around $900. So Dad and his brother went to Gerald's house with one of the sheriff's deputies to get his car. Dad greatly enjoyed the look on Gerald's face when he realized what was happening. The car got towed back to the shop. The next day, Gerald came in with the money. As he was counting it out to Dad, he realized he was $100 short. Darn it. Dad took the money, counted it again in front of him, put the money away, wrote Gerald out a receipt, and told him that when he came up with the other $100, he'd get his car back. Gerald said nothing. Also, Dad said there's a daily storage fee. Gerald continued to say nothing, and then he left the shop, got back in the car he came in, and left. After an amount of time that wasn't sufficient to go anywhere and collect $100, yet long enough that someone as dumb as Gerald might think they would fool Dad into thinking it was, came in with the last $100 that he likely had in his pocket the whole time. He collected his car and left. We think he was just hoping Dad would say, close enough, and he'd get away with paying less than he owed. He didn't know my dad. Interesting coda to this story. Sometime later, Dad told this story to an attorney friend of his. When Dad explained how much interest he charged, the attorney was shocked. It turns out the 24% interest maximum only applied to car sales. In a case like this, the maximum was something like 6%, so the court shouldn't have allowed that much interest, and Gerald paid Dad much more than he was legally entitled to. Dad didn't seem to have a problem with that. And our last story. I graduated from Le Cordon Bleu. I don't need your help. Months ago, I was in charge of overseeing a transfer of ownership for a bakery. My primary duties were teaching the new staff how to use the equipment, reason being because the equipment used analog dials and old-school switches. Everything goes well for the most part. The new owners were all receptive and willing to learn. Then one day during the 2-week training session, the newly hired pastry chef comes in, and I was asked to train him. This is where the fun begins. Me. So let me show you how to use the oven. It's important and it can be temperamental. Pastry chef. I graduated from Le Cordon Bleu. I don't need your help. Have you had formal training in baking? No, I've not, and I have no doubt you're capable. However, the oven can be temperamental. I'm just here to give you tips. I don't need your help. I've been trained to bake on many types of ovens. This is no different. I'll be fine. Okay, I understand. However, the owners have asked for a demonstration. They'd like to see a batch of cookies and croissants. The ingredients are over there. New owner. Have you taught the new guy how to use the oven? I tried to. He said he's fine and doesn't need my help. Okay, let's see how he does. A few hours go by and we come back to 2 batches of charcoal. What happened to the croissants and cookies? I don't know. I follow my recipe exactly. It must be the oven. I don't think so. The oven's been repaired and maintained. There's nothing wrong with it. Did you follow the pointers that he gave you? Of course I did. No, you didn't, I say. If you hadn't brushed me off so quickly, I would have told you that the oven is imported and uses Celsius, not Fahrenheit. Also, the bottom burner runs a few degrees hotter than the top, so you need to either use a baking sheet or double pan the pastries to avoid this, pointing to the pieces of charcoal. I swear, the absolute arrogance. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.